Everyone thinks that Coach McDaniel is taking it easy on us. Like, we don't run our tails off. Like, linemen aren't switching cleats halfway through practice because they're sweating through their socks. Like, we go through that, man. Like, we work our tails off. We run. There's only one way to be fast, and that's to run.
Well, Alec, hey, man, appreciate you coming on. Man, last night, I listened to about 3/4 of your book, and we'll get into that a little bit later on. I don't read, I listen. I'm a good listener, so I listen to that, and we'll get into that right later on. But, hey, great to have you on the show. We're going to kind of run through your career, and you just let it loose, and we'll talk some ball and have some fun here. Well, talk to us about this. You grew up in Wisconsin. Your dad was a wrestling coach. You were a big-time wrestler in high school also, Gatorade Player of the Year as a dual quarterback, and you're a quarterback in high school, a big recruit. Talk to us a little bit about your time, and I love the book, and I don't want to give anything away for people that want to read it, is, your time there is wrestling and challenges and the football challenges you had and where it took you on, signed with Northern Illinois, and then, obviously going to Wisconsin. Go through that process so our audience can hear, because we got kids that listen to this show about, how you did it in high school and the things you've done to get where you're at today.
Yeah, man, I think it was all about competing in a number of different ways, right? Like, wrestling season was wrestling season. You have those challenges. You move into football. Being a part of that team is completely different. So I loved, that whole aspect of not specializing, not picking one sport, being able to compete in a number of different ways. You might lose a little bit of development, quote unquote, from some of the other people that are specializing. But at the end of the day, how can you be a better teammate? How can you be more accountable? How can you go through hard stuff and figure out more about yourself? Like, that was my high school operation, right? It didn't come easy all at once. It goes from switching positions as a sophomore in high school, and then second team all conferences as a junior. And then it's like you had to put it all together and work through those struggles, work through some early playoff exits with your teammates in wrestling and high school football to be able to then have all the accolades that you say there. It was a really, really late scholarship offer to Wisconsin that I'm grateful for, but man, I think that development allowed me to be a better athlete overall because I could learn so many different areas to be uncomfortable in a wrestling room versus on a football field. And then to be an NFL football player now playing fullback, man, I wouldn't trade those wrestling experiences for the world to be able to go up in the trenches and be able to hold my own against these guys that run 4.4s and are 275 pounds, man. It's a blessing. And I think that's something I definitely had to work through.
Well, it's kind of interesting. You go to Wisconsin and you're a dual threat quarterback, and you get there and they play you on defense a little bit, and then you end up at fullback. Talk to us a little bit about that process, because I'll be honest with you, I've had to pull quarterbacks in and say, hey, you're going to be a tight end or a safety, and sometimes they don't go real well.
No doubt. Yeah, it was an interesting discussion, right? Because I was a Division I quarterback recruit for Northern Illinois, like you said, and then got that offer as an athlete to Wisconsin. So immediately going into the University of Wisconsin, I wanted to dive into the deep end of that pool. I wanted to see if I could swim with the big fish. I wanted to see if I could figure that out. And I didn't really have a home or a position home to hold on to. So they started me off as a linebacker, started making some plays my true freshman year during training camp. And then a bunch of running backs end up getting hurt after we're playing Alabama early on in the season. There's about 3 guys that are in the NFL right now from that running back room that all went down with injuries early on. So they asked me to switch over to running back. I was like, sure, man. If you would have offered me as a running back 7 months ago, it wouldn't have been a discussion to be at Wisconsin. So that was a no-brainer for me. Obviously, all those guys come back healthy towards the end of the year and into the next year. They asked me to put on some weight and play fullback. So I think it was just about finding the field, especially as a young guy in college. It's how can you help the team, putting the team above yourself, finding a way onto the field first and foremost, and then being able to contribute from there. I think that's the way to do it.
Well, then you have a great career there, and this is something that's very interesting to me. Is you're the only guy the only fullback was invited to the NFL Combine, and people need there's not a lot of fullbacks in the NFL. A lot of people use that extra tight end which, me and Bray and Brent's dad was offensive line coach. So the fullbacks we always invited into our room. We're fans of those guys. Talk to us a little bit about going into that process in the combine, knowing you're such a unique position and it's got to be the right fit for the right team and through that process in the draft.
Yeah, some of the coaches are trying to make me feel good because there's certain teams that had no interest in me, right? During the combine, all that stuff. I'm in between Travis Homer, who's a 5-year vet with the Bears, and Josh Jacobs, right? Because it's
Yeah.
alphabetical. And you get stuck in between those guys, you're not going to look good in a 40. You're not going to look good in the bench press, right? Like that's just the nature of the beast, cost of doing business. But for those teams that are very interested, that need that fullback, they're like, you're the pretty girl dance, man. They can't get your eyes off you. Like you got everything working. You're the only one here that you get evaluated by. So it was a blessing and a curse, man. It's definitely, if you find your fit, if you're able to make that situation right, you can have a great career in the league for a long time. But it takes a lot to be able to get there. It takes a little bit of luck. It takes a little bit of grit to be able to make that thing right. So to land on my feet with Oakland after going undrafted was big. And now obviously down here in Miami, loving Coach McDaniel, Frank Smith, offensive coordinator here, man. It's a great system to be in for a fullback.
Well, we'll get to those guys. We're going to talk about Coach McDaniel. Obviously, he's intriguing in what he does, and talking to you off there, just the excitement that he brings and uniqueness. Talk to us about this. You get sign, you go through the draft. You don't get drafted, and what's your thought process there? I mean, did you think you were going to get drafted and then it doesn't work out and you sign a free agent contract with the Raiders and kind of go through that process, just, from the draft to getting on, the first day of practice with the Oakland Raiders or Vegas Raiders.
Man. I mean, it was, if you're the only fullback invited to the combine, only one invited to the Senior Bowl, you're guessing that your odds are good, right? You're seeing these mock drafts. I'm thinking 5th round, 6th round, something like that. So I was really excited for it. I had everybody over. We're going to celebrate as a family, as a community. I have the whole town over. We're all excited, man. And we're sitting there. I get a call from Brian Daboll from the Bills at the time. You have a couple of different calls from a couple of different teams. Nobody offering you that draft pick, right? It was all recruiting for free agency. And it's like, dang, this is really going to happen. I'm really going to fall off this draft board. I see 3 other fullbacks get drafted ahead of me that weren't at that combine, that weren't at the Senior Bowl. Man, it was gut wrenching, man. It's one of those, it'll put a chip on my shoulder forever. But I think it did at the end of the day allow me to understand how much I love ball, how much I needed it, how much I needed to chase that down, how much of a part of it of football was to me, how much it meant. And it allowed me to go through all those hard times in the first training camp as an undrafted guy, not taking anything for granted, seeing everything as an opportunity and making the most of it. So it's one of the biggest blessings. It was the worst, best day of my life, I think I like to say with some hindsight, but man, it was a tough moment going undrafted. Every single year I'll watch a bunch of guys that'll make it. There's always 3, 4, 5 guys per roster that end up making it. That started undrafted across the board, across the NFL. So it's always cool to have that fraternity of guys making it happen.
That's cool. Well, you go in with the Raiders. John Gruden's there at the time, and they already have a fullback. It's been there, a veteran guy a little bit, and you come in and he gets injured, and obviously you take over. Talk to us about that experience. They bring it in, say, hey, you're the starting fullback.
Man, that was crazy. Yeah, we're out in Alameda. It was Hard Knocks was covering the team. We have Antonio Brown on a hot air balloon, freezing his feet off. We have Coach Gruden going crazy on film, right? You're there for it. And that first training camp was crazy. We're out in Napa, and you go through weeks and weeks and weeks of being on field one with all the starters because our previous starter, Keith Smith, was injured with his knee. And that was the opportunity, right? So I'm ending up figuring out what's going to happen. We're about to play up in Canada on a CFL field. Now, you guys watch CFL football, right? They got the field goal post right in the middle of the end zone. It looks all crazy, like they're playing in the 50s all over again, right? It's something crazy. They have to shorten the field up. It's 80 yards. We travel all the way up there, but I had to call my running back coach first to be like, hey, man, like, what's the deal here? Like, my parents might want to come up. They need to get their passports ready. He's like, no, man, you're going to make this team. Why don't they rebook them for week 1? So that was a good moment to have with my running back coach there, and obviously still had to finish out the preseason strong with the rest of the preseason games. that game in particular, and then the rest of the practices. So to build that continuity there and have that confidence rolling through was a big piece for everything moving forward.
Well, you made an impact quickly, obviously. I mean, you're sitting there and, nominated for Walter Payton Man of the Year award. And one other thing I thought was really interesting is you've been voted as a player rep. And talk to our audience a little bit how important that is to each franchise and what all entails about being a player rep.
Yeah, I mean that's a tight rope to walk, especially for a
Yeah.
lot of guys that aren't in the NFL for very long. If you're a part of your players' union and you're representing the players, one thing I learned from the guys before me was always communicating, right, to the head coach, to the organization, to your players, just being that conduit of information, not trying to impose your opinions on whatever you're voting as, your organization, as your players, as your locker room sees fit. And now if everyone can communicate together and make sure we're moving the best way forward, I think I was thrown into the deep end during COVID. That was my first year as a player rep. So we had a whole lot of negotiations to go through, a whole lot of older guys with opinions, with families, a whole lot of younger guys coming off the street trying to make a team and just trying to get that consensus from the group on how we can move forward and best support ourselves, our families, everyone that you provide for, but then also representing the organization the best way possible. So you're constantly in the middle. You almost put yourself there a little bit, but you want that representation informed. You want guys to be able to articulate and have real conversations. So I felt like that was a place of leadership that I could take over in that locker room. I could tightrope walk as best as I possibly could, man. And I thought I try and do my best to represent my team with their best interests and kind of get a consensus feel for that locker room.
Well, I've always been interested in that because, I mean, that's such a responsibility. You're talking about, people's families, their lives and their careers and taking care of players being safe and negotiation through that part. Well, you'll go on in 2019, get your first start on Monday Night Football. You can't beat that against the Denver Broncos. And you have a good career there. And then boom, 2021, tear your ACL in a contract year. Tell me what that mentally had to be all over you a little bit, and talk to us a little bit, reading your book, going through those. I've had a few of those ACL things and I'm never played at your level or anything like that, but going through that is mine. I mean, it's mental as much as physical. Talk to us about that also with your last year in your contract also.
Yeah, the amount of uncertainty that happened that year was unbelievable. No more contract. You're on your last year of your rookie year. You are seen as a player rep, right? So you are part of that union. Head coach is let go. General manager's on the hot seat. He's about to leave. And then you tear your ACL on week 9 of, the year where everything was supposed to come together. So I think it was just that moment of uncertainty. I think we've all gone through it. Everybody in that's lived has been fired, been let go, been demoted, been promoted. Like, you've had job change, you've had moves. Like, life happens to a lot of people. And that was my piece of adversity that I had to overcome. That's what was written in the stars for me. And that's just something that I had to go through with my family and my support system. So obviously it's unfortunate, man. It's gut wrenching. It's similar to that undrafted message that I'm talking about earlier on. You think everything should be planned and you do all the right things and you prepare the right way, and it still doesn't go your way, right? Like, the enemy gets a vote too. And that was that situation. So having to respond from that, man, was tough. Being with the guys in the locker room, having to be a captain on that team in my 3rd year in the NFL, and then watch the guys go on a playoff run without you. You're up in the press box, just watching. It's hard. But I think that all, once again, introduced me to the love of football, knowing myself a little bit more, and then being able to kind of come back stronger than what I was originally. So I used all of that. I leaned into it, felt that heartbreak, that disappointment, and, every single squat rack session, every single bench press session, every single running, every single milestone, I had a little bit of that chip back on the shoulder, ready to prove myself all over again.
Well, you fortunate in 2022, you signed with the Miami Dolphins, I believe, and just looks like a perfect fit. Mike McDaniel coming in, running the zone, and I've got to watch you a lot play, and Y'all also beat the Cowboys this year. It was a bad time for everybody, and I don't appreciate that, but we'll cheer for you every game next year besides Cowboys game, but that's okay. But me and you had this discussion off air about the Cowboys, and we'll let it be. We're not getting any free agents right now. We've taken it. I'm just off of the whole situation, so I'm moving on. But you go to Miami, South Beach, baby. You got to love South Beach. I've been down there, and I could live down there, and great place. Talk to us about your time the last couple of years in Miami, Coach McDaniel a little bit, and talk to us also, how hot is it down there in the summer during training camp?
Man, it's about 95 degrees and 95% humidity.
Yeah.
It's no escaping it. It hugs you like a blanket. It's them palm trees just come down and they cover you, man. It's unbelievable. Obviously it's like the perfect time to be down here in South Florida right now, temperature wise. Yeah, you hinted to the Cowboys and their free agency thing. Like that's obviously what we're talking about right now.
Well, y'all picked some big ones up yesterday.
Yep,
yes, sir.
Yep. So it's a lot of change. They say 33% of your active roster changes over every single year. 1 out of 3 guys. And that's more of that uncertainty that we're talking about a little bit earlier. But man, this is a good place to play. The NFLPA came out with those rankings, and the Dolphins was ranked, once again, the top organization to play for, top to bottom, support staff, coaches, owner, facilities, everything, straight A's on that report card. So, I can't speak enough to the weather, the South Florida operation, the no state tax, but then also the people in the building that make this thing go.
Well, before I turn it over to Bray here, he's got a lot of questions for you. Talk to us about, it's January and you got to travel up to Buffalo, and they're catching themselves on fire, jumping through everything. It's freezing cold. Y'all had a cold one up there this year. Talk to us a little bit, being in South Beach and then having to go to New England, New York, and Buffalo during those cold times. How do you get yourself prepared for that? Because y'all had a
it's just a
bad one this year.
It's just a decision. It's just that mental state of saying, you know what, everyone's cold, nobody likes it. Go play anyways, go execute anyways, right? So I don't think anyone sugarcoats it. You embrace it late in the year as a Dolphin. We enjoy our time down here Monday through Saturday, and then when it's time to go to work, it's time to go to work. And I think that's where you have that lunch pail hard hat mentality. That's why you got a fullback on the team. That's why you got some gritty guys in the trenches willing to go no sleeves whenever the case may be, and just grit it out, man. That's the way to do it.
Oh man, well, Bray, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, one of the hot topics right now among the Arkansas Razorback fan base is the intensity and focus that you have at practice, right? So there's one way of thinking, you go in, you get everything you got, you leave it all on the field, and you're basically crawling off that thing. But then also, as an offensive lineman and extension of fullback, there is a camaraderie there and a brotherhood where you do enjoy being with your boys, at battle every day. Where do you fall on that conversation, especially with a coach like McDaniel?
It's shared suffering in the locker room, right? Everyone thinks that Coach McDaniel is taking it easy on us. Like, we don't run our tails off. Like, linemen aren't switching cleats halfway through practice because they're sweating through their socks. Like, we go through that, man. Like, we work our tails off. We run. There's only one way to be fast, and that's to run. So that's what we do. And I think that's something that's overlooked, and maybe we showed it a little bit in Hard Knocks this last year, but man, we practice like we play. And I think that intensity, that intentionality, the toughness that it breeds in the competitors, like that's all a part of being a team. And like you said, that brotherhood, getting into the locker room, like that shared suffering, when you see a bunch of guys laying down with their legs up on the wall, just drenched, they lost 8 pounds of sweat at practice. Like, that's when you know it was a good day's work, and then you can go into the film room and you can move forward. So it's fun, and it's cool to see Coach relax on Sundays and stuff. But during the rest of that week, man, we're working. There's no mistake about it.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think today on Twitter, I saw your Madden speed scores of 96. So it seems to be paying off.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. I think they're looking for some promotion or something, because a fullback should be 66 at the most, not 96, man.
Well, one of the things that you do very well off the field is talking about adversity. And we mentioned your book earlier, and you do a lot of things to give back. And one thing that we've done at the high school that I work at is talk about the adversity. Our first year, a big play would happen for the other team, and all of a sudden our guys are shot down. And so our entire off season has been, how do you respond to that? We call it up to one person will yell down, everybody else responds with up. And that seems to kind of align with your book, The Seven Crucibles. What is in this book that really translates that we could use as a high school program?
I think it's the stories and the relatability of everyone going through hard things, right? You might see an NFL football player, an NFL football player writes a book, and it's going to be all the success stories of how to do it and how to be successful. And the entire book is about the failures that I've had throughout my life and how to overcome that adversity, right? You can't control in life what happens to you. You control your response to it, which is exactly what you're talking about, right? And that mindset, that mantra, I think it breaks down this barrier of this unreachable place or destination of being an NFL football player. Like, you got to work your tail off, man. There's no shortcuts. These are the answers. And it's like, the more time you're trying to find your way around it or find that easiest path, the path of least resistance, you could have just been putting one foot in front of the other and getting better and being more accountable and more sustainable for your teammates. So I think a lot of those lessons are there for teams, for coaches, for athletes, trying to be the best version of themselves, but also having that courage to put yourself out there. And whether you fail or you succeed, you know that you're improving and you're growing. And the next goal that you put down, you'll be that much more equipped to go execute it.
No, yeah, that's exactly, what we're looking for. And you're absolutely right. I'm really looking forward. I think we're going to do a little book session with some of our seniors this summer.
There you go.
But yeah, Brent.
Yes, Alec, I want to, the people that are listening to this show, they have no clue what a football player goes through from after the game on Sunday to get prepared for the next Sunday. And could you take us through what your week looks like starting on Monday, Tuesday?
Yeah, you want me to go day by day now, huh?
Yeah, let's get
All right,
it,
so
man.
let me start after that Sunday night game when we beat the Cowboys. How about that?
Ah, God,
Oh, come on, okay.
That's all.
I'm just kidding. No, it's Monday is it's a challenge to get up out of bed, man. It feels like you got in a car crash about 20 different times. I had a number of different foot injuries this last year that I was battling through. So when the dogs are getting up at 6:30 in the morning, because that's the normal routine, but you just got back home at 1 a.m. because you just got back from traveling from Buffalo or Las Vegas or California, whatever. It don't matter to the dogs, man. They're up at 6:30 saying, we need to get out. We need to get fed. We need to get taken care of. So that's the toughest part, man, getting up, limping all the way down the stairs. Sometimes I sleep down on the couch just so I don't have to walk up and down the stairs after a night, because that's how banged up the body is, man. And once you get up, get some good breakfast, we'll have some film review somewhere around 11 o'clock in the morning, right? So guys can sleep in, get that rest. We'll go from like 11 to 4. So we are reviewing last game as a special teams unit, as an offensive unit, as a team unit. You're also getting a workout in. You need to get the workout in the day after the game, flush all that lactic acid out and get ready for that next day. Now, Tuesday is the player's day off. I use quotations because team already, right? Whether it's on your own. Obviously, we're not required to be in the building, but I think if you're on a successful team, the players lead that. The players want to be there. The players want to get better. And that's what we did. So we would get another workout in on Tuesday. We'd watch that tape, make sure the body's ready to roll, and you're good going into Wednesday. Now, Wednesday morning, I'm in the facility around 6 a.m., getting in the tubs in the steam room, getting treatment on my foot, getting treatment on my body, making sure I'm good, ready to roll. Our first meeting is going to be at 7:30, so I'll run in quick, grab a bite to eat, head over to the film room, and we're going to have special teams. That's the first thing. So you go through your special teams for about an hour, then you got a team meeting, then you got an offensive meeting, then you get your running back room meeting. So that's going to run all the way until 12:30. Now we're going to change. We're going to get out to practice. We're going to walk through everything. We're going to practice everything. It's going to be 3 hours, 3.5 hours on the field. I forget the exact number of time. Come back in, shower up. Some guys need to hit that lift still. If they haven't hit that lift, you're pushing right around 3:30, 4 o'clock. We're going to have meetings till about 6, and then you head home. So it's I'll leave the house at 5:30 in the morning. I won't get back until 7:30 at night. And that's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, right? So that's 3 days of work, you're putting that time in with your brothers, you're sacrificing. Fridays, you get out a little bit earlier, might get a nice clean haircut for the weekend, for the game day. You know what I'm saying? Like, get that feel good Friday going. Saturday might be a travel day, might just be a walkthrough day, and we go and play on Sunday, man. That's the week, a week in the life of the NFL football player.
Wow. And people get into a little bit about y'all watching the film, doing the walkthrough. I think that's such a cool, watching Hard Knocks. That might have been going on in the NFL for the last couple of years, but I haven't seen that or a coach talk about that. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, when we are going through those meetings that I was talking about, special teams, then an offensive meeting, then a team meeting, right? Then the position meeting. At some point in there, after we get the install, after we're going out and we get an understanding, the position coach can break it down. We'll go onto our indoor facility and we'll walk through a number of plays that we just installed. Now, it's not going to be exactly the same or different from the practice rep, but it gets everybody a chance to get plays going, to download your body mechanics, to work together, to talk through the timing of reps, right? That just allows the transition from the film room to go into a walkthrough setting. And now those are the times where you're challenging your mind. You can't mess up. If you do mess up, like, that's the time to learn it, adjust it. So in practice, it's full speed. All gas, no brakes. That's when you're going out, you're executing, you're competing, you're not asking those questions anymore, right? So it's that progression from the film room to a walkthrough to practice, and then ultimately on to Hard Rock Stadium.
That's awesome. Well, before we get into your book, talk to us a little bit about the difference in, you played for Coach Gruden, and, what do we see on camera? Rough, tough guy, pretty honest, obviously, in your face guy. And then, of course, Coach McDaniel. And I just love watching that guy, out there talking trash to Dan Marino. Hey, Dan, we're going to break all your records. And, and just that part, and just being really authentic and watching his meetings. Talk to us about those two head coaches. And obviously, your position coaches you're with most of the time. But for our viewers who, they know both of those guys, talk to us about those guys and what you've gotten from those guys.
I mean, I think it's just they're both, authentically themselves, right? They're not pretending to be anybody they're not. And that's from their story, what they've had to go through to get to a head coaching spot like that. They're at the pinnacle of their careers, and I was able to be a part of those, right? So when you see them at that level, they get to truly be themselves, which for me gave me the courage to go out and truly be myself, because I see how empowered, I can see how much fun they have. I can see how much joy it is to install a run play on a random Wednesday in October, right? Like, you get excited talking and hearing about football and learning about the ins and outs, and being able to watch tapes from Julio Jones running in Atlanta, or, all the way back to, the Tampa Bay days, and watching Mike Allstott practice. Like, all of the clips are all there. And it's like just the student of the game getting to learn. It's infectious, that energy. Like, that's what I love about football. And that's what I love about being able to be a student of that game.
Well, that's cool. Well, talk to us about your book and where our audience can find your book. Talk to us. We'll throw it up on the screen and everybody can look at it in that part, but talk to us where you can find the book. I got through probably 85% of it last night, and I really couldn't stop listening to it, but I had to go to bed, go to work next day. But talk to us where to find that book and a little bit about it.
Yeah. So the 7 Crucibles, right? That's the, being able to see, adversity in your life and see it as an opportunity, right? And using that game plan for success. So the title is The 7 Crucibles. You can find it on Amazon, man. Just type it in, type my name in on Amazon, Alec Ingold, whatever, it'll pop up. You can get it probably on your doorstep tomorrow. Now, if you're a better listener than you are a reader, it's on Audible. I think it's about $5, right? Like, it's not that expensive, and it's an easy, weekend read. It's 1 or 2 days. It's not that much. I kind of modeled it after that summer reading schedule that we used to have in college, so that we'd all do a book study together as a team. Like, I wanted short chapters where people could really, really dive into it, man. So it's all about my life story, going from adopted to undrafted to being a Pro Bowler now. And my mission was to be a better football player after that ACL injury than before. And that book is exactly how I did it.
Well, it's a great book, and we appreciate you giving back to that part of it, because just like Bray was talking about adversity, and I think today kids really have trouble dealing with adversity and hard times and that part of it. And listen to your story and how you can, when you put your mind to things, you can get things done and accomplish goals. Just, listen to your wrestling stories, listen to the book, you wrestling and getting nose to nose. And I don't want to give it away, but outstanding read for somebody, and for guys like me, outstanding listen and everything. Well, Alec, hey man, we appreciate you coming on, man. And hey, we're going to be pulling for those Miami Dolphins every weekish this next fall. And if the Cowboys don't pick anything up, I'm going to change teams, but we're going to let it go. And you guys are on the market. I mean, it's up there. Got a couple buddies. We're thinking about jumping in the free agent or the portal here pretty soon if we don't get some dudes. I'm just going to throw it out there and everything.
I love you. Got room on the bandwagon down here, man. Anytime.
Oh yeah, well, we're there. We're there. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for taking time with us. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
Awesome, guys. Appreciate the time and the opportunity.
See you, buddy. Thank you, man.